What's up guys, Justin here with the CGEssentials.com. In today's video we're going to check out an add-on for Blender that allows you to quickly import images into Blender and then create geometry from them. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, and so if you've been keeping an eye on the Blender market at all, you might have seen TraceGenius Pro pop up on here. So this is basically a tool designed to help you take a two-dimensional image and trace it to 3D. So this one's actually interesting to me. I mean, I guess I originally thought that it was just going to be kind of like a vector image thing where if you import some kind of an SVG or something like that, it's going to create a 3D object, but it's actually using just regular image files in order to generate geometry from images. So it's super easy to use. So you just need to install it and then you can use it in order to trace those images. And so I'll link to this in the notes down below. Note that is an affiliate link, meaning if you do purchase through that link, I do receive a commission. But let's jump over into Blender and take a look at this. So the first thing you need to do is you need to install it. And so when you unzip this file, because it comes with this TraceGenius Pro file, a lot of the time you download these and you can just directly install them in Blender. This file, it actually has the zip file for installing within a folder right here. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to unzip this file and then install the file that's like 2 folders deep, right? So you do an edit, preferences, install. Within that TraceGenius Pro folder, you're just going to double click one more time and that's where you're going to find this zip file to install it. So a little odd, not especially hard to figure out. And then you're going to want to make sure that you've enabled TraceGenius Pro in your add-ons right here. So the way this works is it pops up over here in your N bar on the right hand side, meaning if you tap the N letter key on your keyboard, it's going to pop out and you can click on this right here. And so notice how it gives you the ability to open an image, which you could also drag and drop into Blender, but then it's got options in here for ways that it's going to create these different outlines from your images. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by importing the Blender logo. And so we'll just bring in the Blender logo with the socket right here. And so I'm going to bring this in and notice what that does is that just brings this in as a file. And this is a simple, I can't remember if it's a PNG, I think it's a PNG file. And so let's go ahead and let's select this object. We'll just leave it as is and we'll click on the option for trace shape. And so notice when we do that, what that's going to do is that's going to come in here and that's going to trace out that shape. And so that's actually pretty cool because this is just like a simple image that's in here. It's not like a vector image or anything like that. And it's basically coming in here and it's figuring out what the different colors are, other things like that. And then it's actually creating a surface in here. So everyone's going to ask, is this quad geometry? No, I don't even know how something like that would work with this tool. So this is going to come in here and create ingons. Yes, that is something you would want to clean up if you're subdividing it for some reason. I don't know why you would be, but notice how this creates that logo really quickly. Well, there's also other options up here. So for example, I can swap from filled to outline. And so if I swap from filled to outline, notice how this one, instead of creating a filled in shape, is going to create outlines right here of the objects that are in here. Now note that there is an option in here for inversion. And so what inversion is going to do, we'll go back to filled, is it's going to flip-flop what's going to get filled and what isn't. So if I flip or turn on the inversion, right, and then I run this right here, notice how I get basically the opposite of what I got over here. So it's basically inverting or flipping those values in here. And so notice that this is coming in here and it is basically generating these shapes based on a color threshold, meaning it's using the lights and darks to figure out where this should be traced. So notice if I bring that down to 0 and click on trace shape, I'm getting a little bit different result in here. So it's not actually generating the text that's on the inside here if I set that color threshold to 0. If I set the color threshold to 1, it's just going to give me an error message, meaning that it's not going to be able to do that. But you can use this on different images, which we'll look at a little bit closer in a second, in order to generate, or in order to kind of play around with the results that you're going to get. Now, one of the cool things about this though is there's also some options down below for post-processing and cleaning up your mesh. And so, say I was to click on the option for add geometry. When I click on add geometry, notice what this is going to do is this is going to give me a slider that gives me the ability to extrude this to 3D. Like this. One of the cool things about this is this stays live, meaning if I click off of it and then back onto it like this, notice how it's going to give me the ability to keep adjusting that object. So I can adjust the geometry. I can also, and let's jump over into shaded mode real quick, I can also use this to add a bevel. Now you do obviously want to be a little bit careful with this, just to make sure that you're not getting overlap geometry or anything like that. You can also adjust the resolution of that bevel right here using this slider to the right. So you've got the ability to take these objects and extrude them to 3D within this tool. Now we do have some options down here for cleanup mesh, which I have not really figured out. I think this really just sets this to either a smooth or a flat surface, but it also gives you the option to set if it outputs this as a mesh or a curve. So this one, for example, let's say that I was to select it and I was to select the option for curve instead of mesh. What that's going to do is if I click on finalize, it's going to take this object and convert it to a curve, right? So that geometry in here is now curve geometry. Now, alternatively, there's another interesting option over here, which is when you finalize the mesh, there's an option to separate the islands. And so if we were to separate the islands, basically what that's going to do is that's going to take this object and it's going to separate each one of these separate pieces into its own island. So if I click on finalize, basically what that does is it applies this, kind of like you would apply a modifier in here. And now each one of these is its own individual mesh like this. So let's take a look at what this might do though if we were to bring in an image. And notice how, by the way, there's this little checkbox in here for center to world origin. As long as that's checked, anything you bring in is going to get placed on the world origin and it's going to move everything to that origin. But if you toggle that off, and then let's say we were to bring in the square Blender logo, I'm going to move this over like this. If I toggle this off, then it's not going to do that, right? If I put this on center to world origin and click on trace, notice how it's going to move it back over here. But if I uncheck that box and then click on trace, it's just going to leave it in place right here. And so one thing I haven't figured out, I'm not sure why this is. So this Blender logo over here, if I run this tool, it's going to give me a full-on outline like this. But for whatever reason, if I try to do this with the square logo right here, and I trace the shape, no matter what I set this threshold to, it's not picking up shape, which I'm not really sure why. It's probably something that I'm doing wrong. I'm not 100% clear on that one, but you are going to need to just kind of play around with this a little bit in order to get the results that you're going for. And so if we use this on an image, like this binoculars clip art from Raw Pixel that I've downloaded, I brought it in as a JPEG, but if we use this image, so we take this and we're going to set our style to filled right here. And so if I was to run this, this actually does a really good job of bringing the shape in and filling it in like this. So usually it does a pretty good job. I can't really figure out the one with the Blender logo. I'm not really sure what's going on with that one, but notice how I could use this in order to bring in this outline really quickly. So it's pretty cool from that standpoint. And then one other thing about this is note that you can take this object, and when you finalize it, you click on the option for curve like this. What it's going to do is it's going to create this object as a curve object. So notice how if I move these different parts and pieces, they're all going to be in here as curve objects. So it's technically going to be editable. So it's going to be editable, meaning you can come in here and you can adjust parts and pieces of that. So you might have some fun with proportional editing there with curves if you want to do that. But I think for creating 3D objects from 2D images, this is actually a pretty cool tool. So obviously kind of a niche use case. So you're going to have images and you're going to want to create 3D things from those images. But if you do need to do that, this makes that process pretty fast and pretty pain-free. All right, so that's where I'm in this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you have a use for a tool like this. I just love having that conversation with you guys. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.